The galaxy had rules older than memory. They were not written, but everyone obeyed them. Power ruled all, and mercy was rare. Across the stars, vast alien empires rose like iron towers. They measured worth in fleets, weapons, and cold logic. Feelings were seen as flaws, and hope was considered dangerous. One such empire was the Car Dominion. They controlled thousands of systems and crushed weaker worlds without pause. To them, the universe was a machine, and they were its masters. Valerin was a record keeper of the Dominion. He was not a warrior, but he had seen war his whole life. His duty was to remember what others erased. His homeworld, Karos Prime, was once untouched by fear. Its skies were blue with twin suns, and its cities shone with metal and light. Valerin believed the Dominion's power made them eternal. Then the warning signals began to scream. At first, the sensors showed nothing clear. Space itself seemed to bend and flicker near the outer orbit. The Dominion commanders called it a sensor fault. The destruction of Karos Prime was not an accident. It was a lesson. The Car Dominion learned too late that the galaxy did not reward pride. A larger coalition had marked their empire as inefficient and wasteful. Their fleets were strong, but their thinking was old. And in this galaxy, stagnation was a crime. Valerin watched the final data streams from his shattered world. Cities vanished in white light. Oceans boiled away. Billions of lives were erased without anger or joy. Only silence followed. He survived because he was small and forgettable. His archive vessel was ignored as debris, drifting alone among burning stars, with nothing left but records and pain. As the days passed, Valerin learned a hard truth. The galaxy did not care who you were. It only cared what you could destroy. He traveled through broken systems and dead space. World after world showed the same pattern. Empires rose. Empires were judged. Empires were erased. No one fought to the end. No one resisted once the outcome was clear. Surrender was efficient. Extinction was acceptable. This was the unbreakable order of the galaxy. In the deep records, Valerin searched for meaning. He wanted to understand why survival felt empty. Why obedience had saved his life but stolen his purpose. That was when he found the anomaly. It was buried in old trade routes and ignored surveys. A minor species on the edge of mapped space. Classified as biologically unstable. Emotion-driven. Short-lived. The records labeled them as humans. They had no great empire. No ancient fleets. No galactic influence. Their technology was uneven and crude. Their ships were inefficient and overbuilt. Their systems relied on redundancy instead of elegance. Most observers dismissed them as temporary. A species that would burn out or destroy itself. They were expected to vanish quietly. But something in the reports unsettled Valerin. Humans showed an unusual pattern. They did not retreat when logic said retreat was correct. They did not surrender when defeat was certain. They lost wars and kept fighting. They lost worlds and returned. Their history was full of failure. Yet they survived every time. The analysts called it stubborn behavior. An emotional defect that wasted lives and resources. A flaw that would prevent them from joining higher galactic society. Valerin felt something stir inside him. A feeling he was trained to suppress. Curiosity mixed with fear. He studied human disaster records. Plagues, wars, planetary collapse. Each event should have ended them. But instead, their numbers grew. Their reach expanded. Pain did not weaken them. It reshaped them. Still, no one feared humans. No fleets watched their borders. No coalitions planned for their rise. They were seen as background noise in a violent universe. Then Valerin received a new signal. A massive alien armada was moving toward a disputed sector. The same coalition that destroyed Karos Prime. Their path passed near human space. The predictions were clear. The humans would either submit or be erased. Valerin marked the event in his records. Another minor tragedy in an uncaring galaxy. Another species about to learn the rules. But the final sensor reading made him pause. One human warship had moved forward alone. It did not flee. It did not signal surrender. It simply waited. And for the first time since his world died, Valerin felt the galaxy hesitate. The alien armada moved like a dark tide. Thousands of ships advanced in perfect formation. Their hulls reflected starlight like blades. For the coalition, this was routine. Another system to break. Another warning to the galaxy. Their leaders believed fear was the cleanest weapon. Show enough power, and resistance would collapse on its own. That belief had never failed them before. The lone human warship remained still. It drifted near the edge of the sector, small compared to the armada, almost fragile in appearance. Alien sensors scanned it again and again. The results caused quiet amusement. One ship, outdated materials, strange internal layouts. No surrender signal appeared. No distress call followed. The ship simply stayed. The coalition commanders interpreted this as confusion. A weak species frozen by fear. They decided to end it quickly. The first strike came without warning. Energy beams tore across space. Enough firepower to crack a moon. The human ship's shields flared once, then collapsed. Chunks of armor spun away into the void. The vessel's silhouette twisted as systems failed. By all known rules, it should have died. Inside the ship, alarms screamed. Power grids fractured. Compartments lost pressure. Casualties mounted in seconds. Critical systems went dark. Every calculation pointed to the same end. Total destruction. Alien observers recorded the moment carefully. This was how lesser species learned. Pain first, then silence. But the human ship did not explode. Instead, it drifted closer. Its engines burned unevenly, like a wounded animal refusing to fall. The coalition increased firepower. More ships joined the attack. The void lit up with violence. The human warship took hit after hit. Its hull glowed red. Internal temperatures spiked beyond safe limits. Any rational species would have shut down, ejected escape pods, or sent a plea for mercy. Humans did none of these things. Damage reports from alien sensors began to show anomalies. Power reroutes that made no sense. Weapon systems reactivating after being destroyed. Energy flows moving through broken paths. The ship was adapting. Not efficiently, not cleanly, but stubbornly. Valerin watched the data with growing unease. He recognized this pattern, not from strategy, but from suffering. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to continue, to last one more moment. Each loss forced change. Each failure created something new. Pain became a tool instead of an end. The coalition commanders dismissed the signs. They believed endurance without victory was meaningless. They pressed harder. Then the human ship fired back. The counterattack was small, almost insignificant. One focused strike toward a command vessel. It should have been harmless. It was not. The beam pierced through layered shields. Systems overloaded in sequence. The command ship went dark. Confusion rippled through the armada. Orders delayed. Formation staggered. This was unexpected, but not yet frightening. The coalition adjusted, redirected fire, prepared a final strike. As they did, the human warship changed course. It moved directly toward the heart of the fleet. Closer, not farther. Valerin felt a cold weight settle in his core. He had seen surrender. He had seen fear. He had seen extinction. He had never seen this. A species choosing pain over safety. Choosing destruction over retreat. Choosing to advance when all outcomes promised death. The galaxy's rules said this behavior was pointless, but the data said otherwise. As the armada closed in, new energy readings spiked inside the human ship, levels that should have torn it apart. Valerin realized something too late. The humans were not trying to survive the attack. They were preparing to change the battle itself. The coalition fleet tightened its formation. Thousands of ships moved as one body. Their commanders believed the battle was already decided. From their view, the human warship was broken. Its hull was torn. Its shields were gone. Its energy readings were unstable. To the coalition, this was not courage. It was denial. They continued their advance with calm precision. Target locks refreshed. Weapons charged. Kill solutions updated every second. The galaxy had seen this before. A weak species refusing to accept the end. Clinging to motion while death closed in. Valerin watched the tactical feed from his drifting archive vessel. He expected the human ship to vanish in light, to be reduced to fragments like so many others. Instead, the data began to twist. The human warship stopped trying to protect itself. Energy was pulled away from life support, from non-critical systems, from anything not essential to movement and force. Internal damage reports spiked. Entire sections of the ship went silent. Crew survival probability dropped sharply. The coalition commanders noticed. They interpreted it as collapse, a final stage before destruction. Some observers recorded the moment with amusement, calling it the last act of a reckless species. Then the human ship did something no model predicted. Its engines burned harder. Despite the damage, despite the heat, despite the tearing stress across its frame, it accelerated, not away, not sideways, but directly into the densest cluster of enemy ships. Alien targeting systems struggled to adjust. Their logic was built around self-preservation, around avoidance of unnecessary damage. The human ship ignored those rules completely. Weapons that were marked as destroyed came back online. Not fully repaired, not stable, but functional enough. The ship fired in irregular patterns. Shots timed between system failures, using gaps in its own breakdown to strike. The coalition fleet began to suffer small losses. A cruiser disabled, a carrier drifting, shield grids failing out of sequence. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to disrupt the perfect order of the armada. The laughter stopped. Command channels filled with recalculations. Threat assessments shifted upward. Risk values rose beyond acceptable margins. Valrin felt something he had not felt since his world burned. A tight pressure behind his thoughts. The feeling that the future had become unstable. The humans were not following the galaxy's rules. They did not slow when wounded. They did not retreat when logic demanded it. They used damage as momentum. The coalition commanders responded with overwhelming force. More ships moved to intercept. Firing arcs overlapped. Space itself glowed with released energy. The human warship vanished inside the storm. Its outline lost behind light and debris. For a brief moment, silence returned. Then new readings appeared. Power spikes surged from inside the storm. Not smooth, not controlled, but massive. Valrin's instruments struggled to measure it. Energy flows crossed thresholds meant to be fatal. Structural limits were exceeded again and again. Any other species would have shattered. The human ship emerged from the fire, barely holding its shape, burning, still moving forward. Coalition ships near its path began to fall back. Not from fear, but from confusion. Their models no longer worked. Their predictions collapsed under human behavior. The galaxy's unbreakable order had one weakness. It assumed survival mattered more than resolve. Valrin understood now why the records felt wrong. Why human history refused to end. Why pain never stopped them. As the coalition prepared its final response, Valrin saw a new signal form within the human ship. A concentrated energy build deep in its core. It was not a weapon he recognized. It was not a system listed in any database. It was something born from desperation, from refusal, from the simple decision to never stop. And as the human warship charged straight into the heart of the fleet, Valrin realized the galaxy was about to learn a truth it could not erase. The human warship drove deeper into the enemy fleet. Not fast, not clean, but unstoppable. The coalition commanders finally understood the danger. This was not a broken ship acting on instinct. This was a species making a choice. Orders changed across the armada. Ships scattered to create distance. Formations broke apart for the first time in centuries. Fear was not spoken, but it was present. The human ship should have collapsed by now. Its hull was barely holding together. Its internal structure was cracked and twisted. Life signs aboard were fading, yet it continued forward. Inside the storm of fire and debris, the ship released its stored energy, not in a single blast, but in waves. Each surge disrupted enemy sensors. Each pulse interfered with command signals. The coalition fleet relied on perfect coordination. The humans shattered that order. Ships began to collide. Targeting systems misfired. Defense grids failed at the worst moments. The humans were not stronger. They were not more advanced. They were simply willing to push past every limit. Valrin watched the battle unfold in disbelief. The data showed a pattern he had never seen. The more damage the human ship took, the more dangerous it became. Pain forced adaptation. Loss created new solutions. Survival was no longer the goal. The coalition launched a concentrated strike. A final attempt to erase the human ship completely. Enough firepower to tear space apart. The attack hit. The human warship vanished in light. Energy readings spiked beyond measurable range. Structural integrity dropped to near zero. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. Then the light faded. The human ship was still there, barely recognizable, reduced to a burning frame of metal and fire, but still moving. Its core systems had fused together. Weapons, engines, and power sources merged into one unstable mass. Something no engineer would design. Something born only from desperation. The ship released one final surge. A focused wave of energy that ripped through the center of the fleet. Command vessels went dark. Control nodes failed. Entire sections of the armada lost coordination at once. The coalition fleet began to retreat. Not as a strategy, but as a reaction. They had never faced an enemy that refused to stop. Never fought a species that treated destruction as a tool. Valrin felt something break inside him. A belief he had carried all his life. That the galaxy was fair in its cruelty. It was not. The humans did not win because they were perfect. They won because they endured. Because they chose pain instead of surrender. As the surviving alien ships fled the sector, the human warship slowed. Its energy output dropped sharply. Its movement became unstable. Victory had a cost. Valrin marked the event in his records. Not as a battle, but as a warning. One human warship had broken an entire fleet. Not through superiority, but through refusal. As the damaged ship drifted among the wreckage, emergency signals began to pulse from its core. Weak. Fragmented. Valrin detected something else as well. A new classification spreading through coalition networks. A single word attached to humanity. Uncontainable. And as rescue fleets began to move toward the battlefield, Valrin realized the war was not over. It had only changed shape. The battlefield drifted in silence. Broken ships and frozen debris filled the sector. What remained of the coalition fleet fled in scattered paths. No formation. No order. For the first time in recorded history, a galactic armada had been broken by a single enemy. Rescue vessels arrived hours later. They moved carefully, as if the space itself might still fight back. They found the human warship barely intact. Its hull was open to the void. Its engines burned at minimal output. Life signs were faint, but present. The humans had not escaped. They had endured. Valrin transmitted his records to every major archive. He did not change the data. He did not soften the outcome. He showed the galaxy exactly what had happened. The response was immediate. Across the stars, analysts reviewed the battle again and again. They searched for hidden weapons, secret technology, unknown allies. They found none. The conclusion disturbed them deeply. Humans had won without superiority, without numbers, without advantage. They had won through refusal. New classifications were written into galactic law. Human space was marked with caution symbols, not because of strength, but because of unpredictability. Humans were labeled emotionally unstable, pain-tolerant, loss-resistant, non-compliant. The galaxy began to understand the flaw it had ignored. Humans did not measure survival the same way. Death was not failure. Surrender was. Valrin studied the human recovery efforts. Damaged ships rebuilt from wreckage. Wounded crews refusing evacuation. Signals sent not for mercy, but for reinforcement. The humans did not celebrate the victory. They mourned their dead, then prepared for the next fight. That unsettled the galaxy more than the battle itself. Empires that once mocked humanity began to adjust their borders. Coalitions delayed expansion near human systems. Diplomatic channels opened where weapons once spoke. Fear changed its shape. The galaxy's unbreakable order still existed. Power still ruled. War still came without warning. But one rule had been rewritten. Never corner humanity. Valrin looked back at the moment his world burned. At the silence that followed. At the obedience that saved him. And the emptiness it left behind. Humans had shown him another path. Not safer. Not kinder. But real. A path where suffering was not the end. Where loss became resolve. Where survival meant standing your ground. As Valrin closed his final record, he added a personal note. Something no archivist was supposed to do. The galaxy fears humanity now. Not because they seek war, but because they never stop once it begins. And somewhere beyond the stars, human shipyards burned through the night. New warships took shape. Stronger. Heavier. Built to endure what should not be endured. The galaxy had learned its lesson too late. Humans never surrender.